Shalom. There is a well-known Talmudic principle in the tractate of Ta'anit, Mishinichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. When the month of Adar enters, one increases one's joy. Indeed, Purim is one of our most joyous holidays. Children and adults get dressed up, they make noise, and they may even get drunk, following the advice of Rava found in the Talmud in the tractate of Megillah, folio 7b. But the book of Esther is actually a very serious book. Haman wanted to kill all the Jews, men, women, and children. In other words, Haman wanted to commit genocide. Therefore, in light of the October 7th war, and in light of the fact that Hamas is still holding 59 Israeli hostages, I would like to draw three serious parallels between the story of Purim and our current situation, following the Talmudic principle, Maaseh Avot Siman Levanim, the actions of our forefathers is a sign for the descendants. We read in Parashat Zachor this past Shabbat regarding Amalek, Dvarim chapter 25, Asher karcha baderech vayizaneh becha kol hanechshalim acharecha ve'ata ayef yagea ve'lo yarei Elohim. How undeterred by fear of God, Amalek surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary and cut down all the stragglers in the rear. I agree with the rabbis who say that Amalek no longer exists. But what Hamas did on October 7th, and what they would gladly continue doing, was to surprise us, to cut down men, women, children, and the elderly. They too have no fear of God. They too are like Amalek. The second parallel is a midrash found in the second half of Midrash Esther Rabbah, which was apparently edited in Europe towards the end of the 10th century. When Haman told Achashverosh to destroy the Jewish people, Achashverosh did not reply that this would be immoral. He simply said, "Look what God did to the kings who tried to destroy them." In other words, I agree with you, but it's futile. Achashverosh then convened the wise men of the nations, and he said to them, "Is it your desire that we destroy this nation?" They too replied that God is too powerful. Look what he did to Pharaoh and Sancherib. Haman then convinced them that God is old and weak. They then came around to his opinion and agreed to destroy Israel. Let us switch the wise men of the nations in the Midrash to the United Nations. Many of the members of the UN would agree with Hamas to destroy the state of Israel. They have no moral reservations. The only thing holding them back is that the state of Israel is simply too strong. And this leads us to the third and final parallel, to the book of Esther, chapters 8 and 9. After Haman was hanged, Esther asks him to rescind Haman's decree of genocide. Achashverosh replies that he cannot rescind a royal decree, but that Esther and Mordechai can send out an additional decree to the Jews. Mordechai then sends out a new decree to the Jews and to the Persian officials that the Jews have the right to defend themselves and to kill their enemies. The Jews have learned from bitter experience that they cannot rely on other countries or rulers, or certainly not on the United Nations, to defend them. They must rely on themselves. The Jews of Persia defended themselves, and so do we. It says at the beginning of Esther chapter 9, Bayom asher sibru oivei haYudim lishlot bahem v'na'afochu, asher yishletu haYudim hema besonehem. On the very day on which the enemies of the Jews had expected to get them in their power, the opposite happened, and the Jews overpowered their enemies. This is exactly what happened to the IDF and the State of Israel after October 7th. May God continue to give us the strength to defeat the Hamans of our day. Purim Sameach, Am Yisrael Chai.